Guess what, guys? I've been tagged. What does that mean? I'm about to tell you, right? What's up, you guys? 4K Lowdown here, and yes, I have been tagged. Stephanie, over at I'll Buy the Popcorn, issued a challenge. She brought up 9 questions, categories, however you want to call it, and then tagged people in order to answer those questions. So this continues on, right? Geeks and Flicks, our buddies Nate and Alex over there, they accepted the challenge, did their list, and then turned around and challenged Rich and I. TurnerFan77 did his with his daughter, and it was awesome. Now it's my turn. So, 9 questions or categories will be answered, and I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to answer for a theatrical release and a streaming release or physical release. Basically just covering everything I've watched this year. At the end of this, I will tag 2 people to see if they accept the challenge, but anyone is welcome to accept this challenge. All you need to do is keep track of the questions, which I will put up here on the screen as we do it. Then tag I'll Buy the Popcorn in your post and tag me because you're coming from my video, because I want to see yours too. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to do this. Let's get started. We're going to start with the bad news first. And the first one is the biggest disappointment. Now, the biggest disappointment for me is the movie that I expected more out of. Not necessarily bad, but that I expected more from, and it didn't deliver. So my theatrical pick for most disappointing is Marlowe. And I picked Marlowe because I expected this to be a full-on film noir movie, something Liam Neeson has never done, and I was really hoping for a nice, good murder mystery detective story, you know, something right out of the 50s, only in full color. And unfortunately, I didn't get that. It did not deliver on all counts. It does try to be film noir, but it has no surprise anywhere in the movie. It was actually kind of dull and slow. So not a bad movie, but my biggest disappointment so far because I expected more out of it. So my streaming pick for biggest disappointment is Disney's Pinocchio. And this was really bad. Fake Italian accents, and it was awful. And then it has to star Tom Hanks as Geppetto. And as a result of this movie, Tom Hanks has moved to the number 2 spot for my favorite actors, and Denzel Washington has moved up to number 1. So that's how disappointed I was in this film. All right. Next category, worst movie so far. So this movie is just bad, right? So I'm going to start with the theatrical movies first. So I've seen a lot of movies in the theater this year. It's been way more than I usually do. And my worst theater experience so far has been with Paint. So Paint stars Owen Wilson, and it's just an insult to Bob Ross is all this movie was. It wasn't funny. I think there was one person laughing in the audience when I was watching it in the theater, and but he was laughing really loud. So apparently he really liked it, but nobody else seemed to like it. I sure didn't. I was very disappointed. There's no way this is going to be in my house. I just felt it was a parody on Bob Ross, even though Owen Wilson claimed in an interview it wasn't, and he was just making fun of the man. And Bob Ross is somebody that I grew up watching. So I was really disappointed. So, worst movie for me in the theater so far, Faint. Okay, worst movie on streaming or video. It has to be Skinamarink. Ah, man. All they had to do was put it in a bag and light it on fire and leave it on my porch because it was a pile of crap. I was, God, I was so disappointed with this thing. And everything, they were saying, oh, most terrifying movie of the year. Yak, yak, yak. The trailer was creepy. So I was really into it, and I turned around and I bought it on DVD, and I paid $10 and I severely overpaid. It was the worst movie I've seen in years. I think in the last 5 years is probably the worst movie I've seen in the last 5 years. So yeah, Skinamarink. All right, now we're getting into some nice stuff. So the next category is the funniest or most ridiculous movie of the year. And so far, I really liked Joyride. This is my theatrical pick. Joyride was a lot of fun. Finally, there's a comedy that's going to take some risks and deliver a good raunchy comedy. I haven't seen a good raunchy girl comedy since Girls Trip, and this buries Girls Trip. So I liked it. The chemistry with the actresses, the total. There's actually a cute little story going on, and yeah, I mean you get past. There's a lot of vulgarity. There's nudity you got to deal with, but all in all, my 5-year-old brain was tickled pink. Loved it. All right. So my streaming or physical release pick of the year so far was going to be Violent Night, because even though it came out last year, it came out on video this year, and it's funny. It's outstanding. It's action packed. Great movie. But I didn't do that because I actually saw it in the theater first. So that would count as last year. So what I did, unfortunately, I don't want to go unfortunately, because David Harbour also stars in the one that I picked. And my pick for my funniest or most ridiculous streaming movie of this year is We Have a Ghost. Stars David Harbour and Anthony Mackie. It's on Netflix, and I think it came out in April, but it's funny. It's got a good story to it. It's got some ridiculous, I can't remember the lady's name, but she's one of the girls in Two Broke Girls. She's the one that's married to the cook. I don't know. But anyway, that lady who's really funny, really obnoxious. She's a medium in the movie, and she's funny. The kids are great. David Harbour as the ghost is awesome. So if you guys get a chance, We Have a Ghost. Really funny. Liked it. That's my pick for my streaming or physical release movie of this year so far. That's funniest or most ridiculous. All right. Most surprising movie of the year. So this is the opposite of biggest disappointment for me. This is one where I didn't expect much out of, and then end up being pleasantly surprised. Again, maybe not the greatest movie I've seen this year, but a big surprise, like, oh wow, totally just blew me away. And for my theatrical one, I actually had a couple that surprised me in a good way, because I've been doing this Mystery Movie Monday, and, movies that I, would never have seen, I go to the theater for, and I'm like, oh, wow, that turned out to be really good. One of them, so like I said, I had 2 theatrical ones that I was really kind of tossing around. So I made one of them my most underrated movie of the year, and I'm going to make this one my most surprising, and that is Hypnotic. Hypnotic stars Ben Affleck, and it's a Robert Rodriguez film. I watched it on a Mystery Movie Monday. This is one that I was interested in, but I didn't think it was going to be as good as I didn't think I was going to like it as much as I did. Now, apparently, I'm the only one who did like it because it seems a lot of people were like, eh. And I think that's probably the biggest surprise to me is how much I liked it over what a lot of other people are saying. So I don't know if you guys had a chance to see this, but it's called Hypnotic, and I really liked it. It kind of plays like two movies if you watch it, and I really enjoyed it. But judge for yourself when it comes out. I think it's probably going to be due out on video here pretty soon. I'd love to see a physical release of this. I would buy it for sure. But anyway, Hypnotic is going to be my most surprising movie of the year so far in the theater. Now, my most surprising movie on streaming or physical also came out of the blue. And speaking of the blue, it's called The Pale Blue Eye. Now, this stars Christian Bale as a detective, and this is a period piece, probably 19th century, where he's looking at a murder at a boys' school, and it's standard detective thing, a little Sherlock Holmesy and stuff like that. So I like the mystery about it. Really cool. The added element is that one of the kids at the school is a young Edgar Allan Poe, and you start to get his little psychopathy. And this is before he really started writing his poems and stuff like that. So this is probably, although I did like The Raven with John Cusack, I'm a huge Edgar Allan Poe fan, and you rarely get a good movie with a Poe reference or with Edgar Allan Poe character in it. And this one really appealed to me. So yeah, it's called The Pale Blue Eye, and it's on Netflix, you guys. So if you get a chance, watch this. This was really surprising. I liked it a lot. It's a slow burn, but it's, the period and the way that they do it, it's just really, really good. All right, moving on. The next category is Action Movie of the Year, and I don't think it's any surprise that I'm going to pick John Wick 4 as my theatrical pick. I did have a couple, Mission Impossible was there, and there were a couple other ones that were right there. But John Wick 4 kills it, and it's Donnie Yen. Donnie Yen is one of the most amazing action stars ever. And to have him in John Wick 4, I finally felt that there was an opponent for John Wick that he might actually lose to. So, that's why it was my pick. There's just action, like start to finish, really, really good stuff. So yeah, John Wick 4 is my pick for Action Movie of the Year, as I think is everyone else's pick so far that I've seen. But let me get to my streaming or physical pick of the year. And this one also, no surprise, but it needs to be talked about because I think John Wick 4 and some other movies are going to overshadow this in the challenge. But you guys, if you want a solid action movie, you need to see Extraction 2. Extraction 2 is on Netflix. It stars Chris Hemsworth. And if you've seen the first Extraction, and you kind of need to just to get an idea of the characters, but these characters all kind of come back for Extraction 2, and it's just balls out action. It's like, yeah, I think, maybe there's a couple of glitches in there to where you're like, I don't see how he could do that, but I don't care. Four Color Universe, that movie is action-packed, start to finish. There's one really long shot that plays really well, and I love these long shots that they do, to where they just continually run this thing where they're, beating people up and, you know, cameras here and there, and they're just doing all this stuff and on the train. And yeah, totally dug it. So Extraction 2 is my streaming or physical release action movie of the year so far. All right, so let's get to horror movie. This was a tough category for me until yesterday, because yesterday was when I watched Talk to Me. Talk to Me, this is the best horror movie I have seen in 3 years. I'm a big horror movie fan. I like horror movies, but everything has been, you know, this year it's been Evil Dead Rise, which was okay. Pope's Exorcist, was okay. Insidious the Red Door, it was okay. So I'm like, okay, nothing's really like jumping out. And I use that term, you know, pun intended. Nothing's jumping out to startle me enough to go, okay, that's my horror movie of the year, until this movie. What I like about Talk to Me is that there is a variety of scares. So it's not just a jump scare fest. It's not just a slasher. It's not just a paranormal movie. It's not just creepy. It's not just, you know, a single type. It actually is kind of a hybrid horror movie. Now, take that back. Barbarian was the last one that was really good. So I would put this on par with Barbarian, but in a different way. So this is the best movie I've seen since Barbarian. And I think that was last year. But yeah, there hasn't been very many really good horror movies in recent years. So to get this one was a treat. So yeah, Talk to Me is my favorite horror movie of the year so far. There's a few more coming. One that I'm really kind of dreading and anticipating at the same time, but we'll talk about that later. All right. So for my streaming or video pick, that was hard. Again, nothing really stood out as a major thing. I liked Sick, that's on Peacock. But the one that I went with is a movie called Run, Sweetheart, Run. And that's on Prime, you guys. This is it seems to go one way, but then takes a complete 180 and ends up being another thing. So again, kind of a hybrid, changes up a little bit. And it gets really, you know, paranormal, supernatural, like crazy. But it starts out as like a conventional, like, oh, it's like a thriller, like it's doing this. And then it goes full on horror. So if you guys get a chance, it's worth a watch. I can't say that that it's like my favorite horror movie of all time or even in the top 5, but it's probably my favorite on streaming or video this year. All right, so best movie of 2023. I can't stress this enough. For me, it's Oppenheimer, because this is an excellent movie, and being a history buff that I am, I can see this movie for its historical accuracy. I can see this for how Christopher Nolan made the film. And yes, it's 3 hours long, but dude, if I order Chinese food and it takes a really long time to get to me, but then the food is like the best food I've had all year, I'm not going to complain much about it. So I feel the same way about Oppenheimer. I do have a problem with the fact that it's 3 hours long, but it's not enough to shut me down. Oppenheimer is my pick this year so far. I don't know if there's anything that's going to be able to beat it. All right. My pick for streaming or physical best movie of 2023 so far. This was tough. There's been some really, really good movies. Again, I had a couple that that I wanted to pick. So I moved one to underrated and I put this one here. So my pick for my favorite streaming or video release for 2023 is still this documentary about Michael J. Fox. And guys, it's on Apple TV Plus, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's on Apple TV Plus. You guys, so if you get Apple TV Plus, definitely see this movie. I'm concerned that this will not end up being a physical release because Coda, having won Best Picture, didn't get a physical release, and it was on Apple TV Plus. So I have a feeling not only that Still will not get a physical release, but I believe Still will get nominated and probably win for Best Documentary Feature next year. So that's my bold prediction at this point. Still is my pick for Best Movie of 2023 on streaming or video. Okay, the next category is for Most Underrated or Underrated Film of this year. And this was kind of my safety net where if I was going to either have it as the most surprising or the best of the year, if it was a toss up between two movies, one of them ended up in most underrated. So my underrated pick so far for this year in the theater is Sisu. Sisu is World War II era movie, takes place in Finland. It's basically about a guy who was in the service and he goes out on his own. He goes off the grid, finds a lot of gold. He's going back to town to cash it. And he gets met with a German, I don't want to say battalion, but squad. And basically they try to just torture him and take the gold and all that kind of crap. So, and a battle ensues. So this thing plays like a spaghetti western. If you guys have not had a chance to see it, this is an amazing film. And it's action packed. So this almost took my action spot. It definitely almost took my most surprising. But I had to say, Hypnotic was probably a bigger surprise for me in a different way than Sisu was. So Sisu is my pick for theatrical most underrated so far for 2023. For streaming or physical underrated movie of this year, I've got to go with Hunger. Hunger is a movie on Netflix. It's a Thai movie, and think of it like Iron Chef meets Whiplash, because it kind of plays like Whiplash with a master chef that's teaching these guys in his academy, and he's just abusive and awful, and enter in this girl who's basically a street chef. She cooks at her dad's restaurant on just this regular, like, middle class area or even lower class area. And this guy goes, "Oh, you need to join this cooking school because you're really good." And she comes in, she basically turns everybody's world upside down. So this is definitely worth a watch. It is definitely it wasn't what I expected, and I hope it's not what you expect either. So that's why this almost made my best streaming movie of 2023. If I hadn't watched Still with Michael J. Fox, this would definitely be my favorite movie on streaming this year so far. So it gets my most underrated because it is a foreign film, and I think people are going to try to avoid it because it's foreign, and I hope you don't get to do that. I hope you actually watch this movie. This is one that can be dubbed or subtitled. Either one works for this film. It's the emotions in their eyes and in their body language that you can catch right away. So this is definitely worth a watch. Hunger is my pick for most underrated streaming or physical release this year. All right. The last thing before the tags is my most anticipated movies yet to come this year. And so I've got one for August, one for September, and one for October that I am very interested, maybe dreading a little bit, but most anticipated movies coming up. The first one is The Last Voyage of the Demeter. And the Demeter was the ship that carried Dracula. So if you guys know the story, you know what this movie is about. And as soon as I saw the first trailer and I saw the name of the ship, I almost jumped out of my seat. I was so excited. So The Last Voyage of the Demeter, that is my first anticipated movie. It comes out in August, so I can't wait to see that. I know I'm going to love it. I don't know if it's going to beat Talk to Me as my favorite horror movie of the year. All right. Next one. Now this one comes out in September. This is the third movie in the franchise and probably the last. It's Equalizer 3 starring Denzel Washington. And like I said, Denzel Washington is my favorite actor at this point. But I can't wait for this, you guys. I've been hoping for a third installment to this series, and now we've got it. So it comes out in September. Can't wait. Equalizer 3, that's my next most anticipated film. All right, so for October releases, my most anticipated, and this is also my most dreaded movie coming out, is The Exorcist Believer. Now, The Exorcist, if you guys know me, you know that The Exorcist is my favorite horror movie of all time. So, number one, I'm glad this is more of a sequel and not a reboot. So, otherwise, I might have rejected it right off the bat. I love the fact that Ellen Burstyn is in it. Ellen Burstyn played the mom in the first one. So, I'm glad to see her back. I would have liked to see Linda Blair in some aspect, and I'm still hoping for a cameo. But I think this comes out October 13th or 14th, but it comes out in October. It's Exorcist Believer, and that is my third most anticipated and also my top most dreaded or feared movie coming out this year. So it's either going to be really good or it's going to crap the bed. Either way, I'm going to see it in the theater. All right. So that's it for the questions. Again, Stephanie, thank you so much for issuing this challenge, and big thanks to Nate and Alex, my buddies over at Geeks and Flicks, for accepting the challenge and then turning around and challenging myself and Turner Fan 77. Now for my tag. I am tagging two people, and first I'm going to tag Huck over at Huck's Pop Culture Cafe. I've known Huck for a little over a year now. I'm going to be on his trivia show tomorrow night, or tonight by the time this releases. So Monday night, I will be on his trivia show for sci-fi movies. Can't wait for that. So Huck, you are my first tag. I challenge you to complete this test. My next one is going to be Mike over at Mega Mike the Movie Man. He was my first high five this year. So, and I know Mike watches a lot of movies, much like I do. So, Mega Mike the Movie Man, you are my second tag. I challenge you to complete this task. But as for the 4K Lowdown, I am done. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you are not already, please like this video, subscribe, turn your notifications on so you can get additional content from me, and I will see you next time.